Alright, so today I just kind of wanted to go over the guts of my steel string singer. There's some tweaks in here, not many, that is inspired by the Two Rock Sterling signature. Funny enough, it sounds like Two Rock is announcing or going to announce a small run of Sterling signature amps again, called the Silver Sterling signature. Matt Schofeld was seen with one the other day. He also posted on his Instagram account, so that's cool. I don't know, it's still going to be outside my price zone, so I'm still happy with my route. But anyway, so this is inspired by the Sterling signature. Normally, I had a 250K pot in here, and I changed it out for a 1 meg pot. I couldn't really find a good small one, and I had this one lying around, so it does the job. It's very sturdy. It's not going anywhere, especially with that hot glue down here. But anyway, so what this pot does, just to kind of walk through everything, is this pot is basically how loud the signal, the dry signal, is going through the tone stack. If you turn it all the way to the right, that gives you 1 meg, and that is the volume in the setting for the John Mayer Two Rock amp. So it's very quiet. If you turn it all the way to the left, it's super loud. And if you turn it in the middle, you got a good kind of mix of loud, sensitivity, and just good. You probably get some good bedroom volumes actually out of this, depending on how you set this. A byproduct of setting this one way or another is the reverb is greatly affected. So if you want more reverb than what's on tap, it's likely you'll have to adjust this, or I would have to adjust it. But anyway, here, let's go through some more things here. So for the cabling, I used as much as I bought of this awesome Belden cable. Let's see if I get a part number here or so. And what this Belden cable, you'll see some let's see what's this. Oh, there's some 9394. And what this cable is it's dual shield. So it's got the 95% copper kind of standard twist ground, and then on the inside is a it's a textile, conductive textile, so that gives you 100% coverage. And I just had to be careful, at first it was a learning lesson for me on where to put that, like basically how to strip the wires back. So because I didn't realize that textile fabric was actually conductive at first, and I had just stripped this off because it was simple. And but what ended up happening, just for example, is that the my ground was actually touching some of the signal, and that would have caused loud buzzing and whatnot. So I had to adjust. So anyway, this is my the chassis itself, and it's heavily inspired by number 4. Steel string singer number 4. So you'll see that there's some room over here. The mounting goes on the outside, so I don't have to worry about, when I drive the kind of chassis screws in from the top like this, it doesn't hit any components. It should just go straight down into the hole like such. And also that's kind of cool because from the bottom up, I can kind of, feel with my finger how tight, and make sure that the screws are going in properly. I originally had this, or I still do, I guess. I could have this as an airplane nut. I could rivet in there, but I don't think I need to. I just use standard, just big long bolts really, and flat head just like number 4. But what that's also cool is that I can mount. So this is the FET. You'll notice that there's no connection up here for the FET. I have it on a foot switch. So here's the FET. It's on the wall, out of the way. And good thing, because there's not really that much room in here. Alright, so let's go to the back. And here's the wiring for the Switchcraft foot switch jack, just like number 4. The big difference between number 4 and this one is number 4 has, I believe it's 4 pins, and this one has 5. The reason for this is I can have 2 foot switch controls, not yeah, I can just have 2 foot switch controls. Preamp and the input jacks are all isolated, so lower noise. Preamp out, power amp in, those are all isolated. Kind of got that inspiration from, well, just reading around the internet about best practices for grounding, and my dual professional. So I noticed that the wiring was kind of weird, and I'm like, what the heck is that? It could just be grounded against the chassis, but you know, for star ground principles, that's the way that is. And you notice here there's 2 switches. Well, what do those do? That's for V1A and V1B negative feedback. So basically how clean, it cleans up the signal, but with that you also drop the volume a little bit. So, and I put these mini switches, they're 3-way. 1, 2, 3. So they're kind of out of the way. You barely see them, if at all, when you kind of come back here. So I think that's a cool little feature. Ceriatone does that. So does the it's 2-rock Sterling signature. Just kind of walking through. Here's the relays. Again, everything is, I try to do as much, and you'll notice like the color coding on the heat shrink is you know, basically indicating red is just a signal. If you see blue, that means that there's a ground. And I got that inspiration from number 4. Over here is the bright, deep, and rock jazz switches. Yeah, so in here is just basically how the tones stack and those switches work. Alright, walking through. We got your reverb. So right here is manual and manual preamp bypass and manual or foot switch FET engagement. That's also on a kind of hidden switches over here. Let's see if I can focus. So that's just 2-way switches. What that does, that allows me to manually go into preamp bypass or manually or control preamp bypass and FET by foot switch. So continuing on, running out of things to say. I hot glued things down as whenever it made sense. That kind of keeps the capacitors and everything from bouncing around during loud noise, especially with the amp sitting on top. So here's the infamous filter circuit. I cross-referenced this one from the Ceriatone kit with a couple known schematics out there of number 2, Steel String Singer number 2, and I was lucky enough to get a schematic of the 2-rock signature, Sterling signature, as well as number 4, and they're all the same. So there's nothing different about that. I wish I did my wiring a little bit different here, just to neaten it up. So you could see I had a different technique down here, and then I swapped over. I think the way I ended up was a lot cleaner than how I started, but nevertheless, that's how that went. Yeah, it wasn't too big of a pain in the butt. Just had to be sure, you know, wire lengths were in consideration and that sort of thing. So with any of this, I really had a hard time. I wouldn't say hard time, but you just have to really be observant. Alright, so next up is some things, as you know, or might not have observed with Steel String Singer number 4. is that there is a mid-accent knob over here. I actually use that knob. I have the low loss cable doing so. I use it as a mid boost. The accent, it was okay, but the mid boost, I opted to go with that, is a little bit more functional. Normally in the Steel String Singer number 4 circuit, this is on all the time. Rightfully so, because it sounds really good. So, but the mid boost, you turn that up, or turn the mid boost on, so in the up position, and it really makes this amp sound like a Fender Twin of sorts. Kind of gives that Jerry Garcia honk to the notes, especially the bass notes. Don't really know how to explain other than it's honky, and that's fun. All right, so I'm gonna go back here. This is one addition that I did last. Was I had these, is this 5-watt? It's a big boy, but it's the same wattage as the negative feedback, global negative feedback that Dumble uses. Now I know it's not the Pyher resistor that he used. Ideally I would have used that one, but a lot of people say that a lot of the magic of how these amps operated is with the negative feedback and the component selection throughout the entire circuit. So you see some carbon composition there. This is carbon composition. This is a 1960s Allen Bradley carbon comp resistor. They say that they were used on the fighter jets from back in the day and all that other stuff. But I put that in. Normally there was a little smaller wattage resistor in there, 4.7K, just like the original. And I didn't, I don't know, I had these lying around, so just in case, there is a difference, I put that in there. Is there, technically there isn't going to be a difference, but who knows? I just feel better. I get to sleep better. And I did have originally some squeal when I turned the volume all the way up. So, and I had this global negative feedback routed kind of over here, following up the chassis line this way. Oop, where is it? And ended up over there. But, yeah, this really nasty squeal when I turned the volume up all the way, or the level over here all the way. So I opted to just try that, take it out of the chassis, and I rerouted over here. Sure enough, it's not picking up any more squeal or any more interference or whatever. I believe the term is oscillation it was going into with that particular, kind of symptoms. Steel String Singer number 5 and probably a few others has a present pot on the outside. Normally you would see that in this position over here. So what I did instead was I do have a presence pot, but I mounted it underneath, nice and stealth. Let's see if I can get out of the way of all my stuff to see. So that's where I put that pot to make some minor adjustment. I don't adjust it that often. I kind of keep it in the middle anyway. And then here's my bias pot. I originally had this on like a thumb switch that I could change, but I kind of was uncomfortable, and I don't use it that much. Because if I was traveling, moving around, bringing it to a band practice or whatever, I didn't want to get knocked, even though it's kind of hard to, but it just made me feel better. So here's the power section, precision power supply. You might see some schematics or other things of Steel String Singer with just the traditional power supply, but this one's better. It's precision. Let's see, and then here's the power supply board for the foot switches, mounted on the side, appropriate. You'll notice that I scraped off the top here from the powder coat. this in theory should give me a ground for the top of the the cabinet. So I put aluminum shield like you normally would at the top, and to ground that out I added these, or I just scrape this down, and that way it gets some continuity. It's this very quiet amp. Otherwise, the output jacks are not isolated. I'm debating on just going back and isolating them. That does mean I have to drill, and when I drill with everything populated, that does mean there's a chance of some flakes coming off and getting to where they shouldn't. But all this is grounded. When we powder coated the chassis, my buddy and I put some masking tape, some high temp tape, silicone tape. So those are completely exposed the right way. And then we did powder coat, we did sandblast and everything. So if you see this kind of shiny surface, it's because it's sandblasted. Real nice crowns. One somewhat unique feature is this AC outlet. I use this a lot, believe it or not, especially with the fan. I just connect it to here for now, and in the future I'll route a plug just like number 4 down here, so just so it's a little cleaner. I can use the plug again, but I used it for like pedals and such. So everything is wired. It comes out the strain relief, and then it goes directly into this outlet, and then after the outlet it goes to the fuse. And I kind of debated on which do I put the fuse first or I put the fuse last, but I opted to put the fuse last, just in case whatever I had plugged in shorts out. It gives me one extra thing to fuse, basically have a local fuse. So that's what I did there. The bias tips is kind of unique. That's not present on the original number 4, but it makes things a hell of a lot easier to do it this way. Some people, I could have opted to make it stealth and put it on the bottom, but I don't know if you ever played the dance of trying to stick a probe in here like that and find it, and it's kind of like putting your keys in the ignition. After a while you start seeing all the different scrape marks. I mean, obviously that's different usage, but this made it easy for me to just plug in to the jack and then just kind of hang it and take my measurements. But here's some 1 watt resistor, so it makes it easy to calculate. All my bias then is converted to millivolts. Makes it easy. And there's my pot again, so it's all within here. Just try not to get burned since it's right there. Alright, so right now I just have JJ's across the board. Enter. Also marked, 6L6GC. Same mounting on the other side. Oh, one last thing before I go is, if you find pictures of number 4, is that it had an old Fender Twin reverb pan, Accutronics USA. Well, I went out, and my buddy, funny enough, I was out on the internet forever and ever and ever trying to find this reverb pan, and I couldn't seem to find a used one, or if I did, it wasn't at a reasonable price. So my buddy, I went over to his house. I'm like, what the heck is that? On your, and it was like an old amp, and it was for vocals. It was a vocal amp. So I opened it up, and it had this beautiful rainbow zinc reverb pan in it. So I gave him a case of beer, and it wasn't the right springs. It wasn't the right anything that I was going for. The impedance was mismatched. It was good for vocals. It was very, very short delay or decay. So I gutted it, and I'm still debating if I want to gut the jacks, because they're kind of funny, because being old and whatever. But I gutted it, and after my reverb tests, I figured out what reverb I liked best, and then I added that to here. So visually it's going to be just like number 4, but tonally it's going to be what I like, because although it's cool to go 100% vintage, there's still a little bit of personalization. I feel more connected, as cheesy as that sounds, with the amp this way. I mean, I've done all the work to make it my own a little bit. It's not a true clone. I'm not trying to go for that, you know, hence my name tag on the back. And I should have done amplifiers. If you look at number 4, it says amplifiers, not amplifiers. That would have been cool. But I didn't think about it until after. I didn't actually know it. I didn't catch it. All right, one other last thing is this. This is the neon indicator. It's 120 volts neon. Since I've bought this one, I looked high for the one that Dumble used. Couldn't find it. So I ended up finding this neon 120 volt indicator, and I just have that wired directly to the power switch. It's really cool. It's not too bright, not too little, you know. And it just looks kind of just on, you know. It helps indicate. So anyway, leave a comment if you have any other questions. Maybe I'll make a further video if there's more questions. But here's a good little walkthrough. And my phone is overheating, so take care now.